Hi, I'm Greg Philback, and we're going through the CFA Institute question and answers, and this one is on Cheng. So we are going to be discussing, as a part of this question and answer, private debt. We're going to be looking at return potential associated with adding private debt into a portfolio, the due diligence process, and also understanding the risks associated with private debt. You'll notice as we start out this question, we are going to basically be looking at a plan for allocation of 5% of the overall portfolio to private debt. And as we look at the table that's given before us, one thing to note is the area in which we are going to introduce private debt is most likely to help in the area where we have a fixed income allocation. The target right now is at 20%, and we are likely going to drop that target allocation down to be able to allow for that 5% substitution associated with the private debt in lieu of the current fixed income. Now, we are going to go through and look at the fact that the diversified portfolio for private debt is expected to have a return of 10%. Note the comparison that we saw in the previous slide at 5%. That takes us to question number 1, which asks us to demonstrate an allocation of private debt may allow northern states to increase its total expected return. As mentioning in our open statements, we said that the private debt would be funding by reducing the allocation to fixed income. Now, that fixed income allocation was 20, it would go down to 15%, and the private debt would pick up that 5% differential. Remember, the private debt return is expected to be 10%. And so that is 5% higher, or 500 basis points, than what we would expect based on the opening allocation information we were given for the 5% fixed income return that we were expecting in the opening portion of the vignette. So if we look at just doing this reallocation, a simple reallocation of 5% to private debt from the fixed income allocation, you'll note that that 5% differential in performance that will ultimately be occurring with a 5% shift in our allocation means that we're looking at an additional 25 basis points of expected return. So obviously, when we look at reallocating, utilizing other asset classes would reduce the potential for expected return. If we were looking at, for example, private equity, if we switch to a reallocation of private debt, it actually reduces the expected return. So again, in terms of where we could